Madam President, I rise to express my deep disappointment that we were unable to proceed to the defense authorization bill. I've been here a while, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm searching my memory, and I don't remember any time that we voted against proceeding to a defense bill. And I'm going to go back, certainly in the time I'm here, I don't remember that. It's a filibuster just to go to the defense bill. And it's perplexing to me because this is some of what's in this bill. A defense health program to care for our military personnel and their families, including our wounded warriors. We know that these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have taken quite a toll on our military men and women, both in seen injuries and unseen injuries, injuries to the brain. We know that some incredible work is going on. I visited some of the research universities that are finding better ways to treat our wounded warriors. They're finding better ways to treat terrible wounds that result in horrible burns to our brave men and women. And now is the time to put those new and better treatments into place, and there's a filibuster and we can't get to the bill. We know there's a military pay raise in this bill for our service members. Those voting no to proceed to this are stopping that. This bill authorizes a TRICARE coverage for eligible dependents up to age 26. In other words, just as we did in the Health Reform Act, in this bill we're saying if you're in the military and you have a child, you can put them and keep them on your coverage until they're 26. It provides $3.4 billion for mine-resistant ambush protected vehicles, or MRAPs, which have proven highly successful in protecting our troops from improvised explosive devices. And it requires companies to certify for all DoD contracts valued over $1 million that they are not engaged in any sanctionable activity under the Iran Sanctions Act of 1996. So we would make sure that the DoD, Department of Defense, is not involved in giving contracts to companies who are trading with Iran, and this is so important as we seek to sanction Iran for her reckless activity in moving toward a nuclear weapon. Well, in that bill that the Republicans blocked also is a repeal of the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And the way it's written in the bill says that we repeal it, but it won't be actually repealed until there's a certification from the Department of Defense that it won't have an adverse consequence on our troops. Some said, oh, this is just ignoring the Department of Defense, ignoring the Secretary of Defense. Not at all. The way Senator Levin, Chairman Levin, put it together, it definitely had a check on it. So I don't understand a lot of my colleagues on the other side claiming that it was just a quick repeal with no check and balance from the Secretary of Defense. I would say, again, it was clear in there, and I'll read the exact words, that there must be, as we repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, a certification from the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that there will be no significant impact on, and I quote, military readiness, military effectiveness, unit cohesion, and recruiting and retention of the armed forces, unquote. You know, I think it's important to note what countries allow gays and lesbians to serve. How about 22 of our allies who were fighting with our fighting men and women in Afghanistan? Australia, Britain, Denmark, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Switzerland, Austria, Canada, Estonia, Germany, Lithuania, New Zealand, Spain, Belgium, the Czech Republic, Finland, Ireland, Luxembourg, Norway, and Sweden. In addition, Israel and South Africa also do not discriminate against gays and lesbians. So I don't know who we wind up with, but it looks to me like the only countries I can find that still discriminate against gays and lesbians in the service are Iran, Pakistan, Cuba, North Korea, and Turkey. And so for us to stand with Iran, for us to stand with Cuba, for us to stand with North Korea, Pakistan, and Turkey over Australia, Britain, Denmark, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Austria, Canada, Germany, etc., it just doesn't make sense. And the point is, because we're part of this coalition of 22 other nations, our fighting men and women are already fighting side by side with those who may well be gays and lesbians. A majority of Americans think it is the right thing to do to allow our qualified young men and women to serve, regardless of their sexual orientation. According to a CNN poll conducted in May, 78% of Americans said they support allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly in the military. 78% of Americans. And we would be standing with them, and we would be standing with our allies. So don't ask, don't tell is hurting our military. It's costing our nation. 14,000 servicemen and women have been discharged from the military under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It has cost taxpayers about $290 million, at least maybe up to $500 million to replace soldiers who were discharged under this policy. And I know many Americans have seen in their living rooms coming on the TV men and women who are our neighbors' kids and our neighbors who have been kicked out of the military even though they were stellar servicemen and women. So it's really most unfortunate that our friends on the other side were mischaracterizing what this was because it was already in the bill, and we allowed them to offer an amendment to strip that language. And they said, oh, well, if we pass this, then the military would be caught off guard. Not at all. The way it was written, there would have to be a certification that it would not be harmful to our military. And I'm also terribly disappointed we won't have a chance to vote on the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act allows those students who have been here most of their lives an opportunity to earn legalized status if they met certain criteria. These are kids who were brought over as kids, maybe a month or two or a year or two, or 5 or 6 years old. They must have lived in the U.S. for 5 years. They must earn a high school diploma. After high school, they must complete 2 years of college or serve in the armed forces for 2 years. Now, they must demonstrate strong moral character, and only those that pass these tests would be eligible to get on the pathway to legality. 65,000 young people a year graduate from high school, but they can't join the military, or they can't go to college because of their immigrant status. And this wasn't their fault that they were brought into the country by their parents. And I would like to tell you that our military has said, and I will quote retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Margaret Stock, she says, potential DREAM Act beneficiaries are likely to be a military recruiter's dream candidate for enlistment. Let me repeat that. The military itself has said the DREAM Act will result in a military recruiter's dream because these recruits, some of them are very good with foreign language skills, foreign cultural awareness, they're in short supply, and they would be excellent recruits. Businesses support the DREAM Act. Our economic future is something we talk about every day around here. I just read a USC study that said if we finally begin a process where people who are here, who are hardworking and caring, can stay here and come out of the shadows, it will create 25,000 jobs and increase the gross domestic product of my state and of the nation. So it seems to me that's why I have the San Jose Mercury News, home paper of the Silicon Valley, writing an editorial last week in favor of the DREAM Act, saying it will boost America's economic competitiveness. So here we have a time where we have something on the floor that is directly related to the military bill, because the military is saying it's a recruiter's dream, all right, this DREAM Act, because they're going to have so many people lining up to join. We have Silicon Valley strongly supporting this, and I will tell you, the San Jose Mercury News said, quote, "The high school dropout rate in this country terrifies business leaders who fear that in the coming decades we won't produce enough college graduates with math and science ability. That's why the Silicon Valley Leadership Group supports the DREAM Act." That's a group made up of Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And they wrote, "DREAM Act students deserve a chance, and the U.S. economy needs their knowledge and their ability." Companies like Microsoft also support the DREAM Act. And they wrote, "The DREAM Act rewards those who place high value in education and service to country." Last week, the president of the University of California, the chancellor of the California State University System, and the presidents of state universities in Arizona, Washington, Minnesota, Utah, and Washington wrote in support of the DREAM Act. They write in a letter, "In the current international economic competition, the U.S. needs all the talent it can acquire, and these students represent an extraordinary resource for the country. The DREAM Act," they write, "is an economic imperative." And in closing, I want to talk about a couple of stories. And I think this is very important. David graduated from high school with a 3.9 grade point average. He's studying international economics and Korean at UCLA. He has served as the leader of the UCLA marching band. He spends his free time tutoring high school students. After graduation, he hopes to enter the Air Force and someday politics. In many ways, he is a model college student and a leader in his community. But he was born in Korea. He came here when he was 9. His family spent 8 years trying to navigate their way to legalized status, only to find out that their sponsor had erred in filling out the paperwork. So here sits David. He had nothing to do with all of this. And here's what he says: "I will not be able to put my name down on a job application because of my status. This country is throwing away talent every second," he says, "but the DREAM Act can bring thousands of students out of the shadows and allow them the opportunity to work for the country they truly love right now." So I would say that these students, like David, they didn't choose to come to this country. They were brought here by their parents. The reality is they've grown up here. This is the only country that they know. And I'm very disappointed that we're not voting on this important bill today. I hope we can take up the DREAM Act later this year. And I believe it will truly strengthen our economy, our military, and our nation. The very last point I want to make as we wind up this Congress, I am so pleased that we passed the Small Business Jobs Act last week. I traveled across California. I have met with so many small businesses, and I did a conference call with about 10 of those businesses, including the Los Angeles Baking Company, the Blue Bottle Coffee Company in Oakland, biofuels manufacturer Solzyme, Capstone Turbine in Chatsworth, U.S. Hybrid in Torrance, the Beach Cafe in Santa Monica, and the Santa Barbara Adventure Company. These are small businesses in my state that are really very strong. They couldn't get access to credit to expand and hire. As a result of the work we did, they will be able to get that credit. And I want to thank the 2 Republicans who crossed over to vote with us. It shows us that we can make progress when we work together, because this has to come ahead of politics. I went to a company called Renova. Renova is really helping to make California the hub of the clean energy economy. And Vincent Battaglia, the owner there, told me that he's been getting no help accessing the credit he needs, and he called our legislation the missing piece, the piece that he's been waiting for. Small businesses create 64% of our new jobs, and that's what happened over the last 15 years, and I believe this bill will help get them back on track, and as they get back on track, our recovery will begin to have a little more energy behind it, because it is very slow. It is agonizingly slow, and I wanted to just state on the record how much I appreciate the two Republicans who joined us.
The senator's time has expired.
I thank you so